Hey guys, make sure you put your name. We're going to do page 328. Okay, I'm going to start on the math problems here and then we'll work our way to the word problems. So it says ER, what is it? So we notice if we flip our paper around, ooh, that's the geometric mean or the altitude. So we notice that this is our baby, right? And to solve, they usually call these two A and B. If the altitude cuts them all in two pieces, they call that A and B. So I'm going to call that A. I can solve for ER just using Pythagorean Theorem because I know two of the three sides. So I'm going to order the sides least to greatest, right? You have A squared. The medium side is this 9 squared. And then this is the hypotenuse of the baby, opposite the right angle. Okay, so A squared, 81. So we can bust this up. So this would be the same thing as we can distribute this. So it's 3 squared and then the square root of 10 squared. So 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of 10 squared is just plain old 10. So we still have the rest of our problem over here. And 9 times 10 is 90. Okay, so we're almost done. If we subtract 81 on both sides, we get A squared is equal to 9. Cool. So take the square root of both sides. A is 3. So we solved that mystery. That part is 3. And that's ER. Now let's look for DF. So we usually call this one X, and that one's Y and Z. So I usually call this Z, so I'll just call that Z. So DF, can I solve for that? And the answer should be yes. This is the teen. I know two of the three sides, 27, 9, and Z. So ordering them least to greatest, 9 squared, 27 squared, Z squared. Get my calculator. All right. So we take the square root of both sides and we get Z, or DF, is the square root of 810. Now it doesn't say specifically how to leave our answer, so I'm just going to leave that as is, but a couple people said, oh, I would like to practice my simplifies. So we could simplify this. It looks like the same number, 81 times the square root of 10 would be 810. And the square root of 81 would be 9 times 9. So if we simplified it, this should give you the same decimal, and we can confirm that. So the square root of 810 is 28.46, and the square root of 10 times another 9 is 28.46. So we've confirmed that that would be the appropriate way to simplify that answer. Again, you don't have to. It's just, again, added practice because some questions will make you. So it's good to practice. DE, that's this whole thing. So this one's 27 and that one's 3. So just segment addition, this small, this segment here, the 27, plus this segment, RE, the 3, should combine to make 30, the whole segment DE. All right. Let's do a few more. So here's our altitude or geometric mean. Let's call that X. And that's exactly what they want us to solve. So I look at this baby and I know two of the sides. I know something about the two sides. So I can order them least to greatest. So I'm going to order them. 2 is smaller than X, so I'll put 2X. And then here with the teen, order them least to greatest, the X and the 8. So X is shorter than 8. So X and 8. Notice both the baby and the teen, I don't know their hypotenuse, so that's not part of this. Okay, so we're going to cross multiply to solve. So we got X squared is equal to 2 times 8. So X squared is equal to 16. So if we take the square root of both sides, we get 4 times 4 is 16. So X is 4. So we've solved that mystery. That's nice. Now can we solve for PQ? So I've had an x, now I'll call that one y. And the answer should be, oh, absolutely I can solve for that. Because this one's 2, this one's 4. I can solve using ratios, or I can just use Pythagorean Theorem. So ordering the sides, least to greatest, I have 2, 4, and y. 2, 4, and y. So I end up getting my answer, the square root of 20. All right, we know a 4 is in there, so if you're wanting practice simplifying, we know we could rewrite the square root of 20, the square root of 4, times the square root of 5, and this would also be the same. Those are the same thing. Square root of 20 is the same thing as 2 times the square root of 5. All right, QR. QR is the hypotenuse of the teen. So we could call that Z, and we know a 4, an 8, and a Z. So let's do it. A 4, an 8, and a Z. So we're going to order them least to greatest. 4 squared, 8 squared, Z squared. I think we got this before. So we'll take the square root of each side, and we get the square root of 80. We know there's a 4 in there, so if you want to get practice, 80 divided by 4 is 20. Oh. 5 times 5, maybe there's a 25 in there. 80 divided by 25, no. 4 and 2 is 8. Is there a 16 in there? Yeah. Okay, so I can, if I divided 80 by 16, I get 5. So 8, the square root of 80 is the same as the square root of 16 times the square root of 5. And the square root of 16 can be rewritten 4. So this is the same thing as the square root of 80. All right, Deshawn installed a shelf bracket. What is the widest shelf that will fit without overhang? So the shelf so they want to know this, I guess. Okay, I think I'm going to have to call my altitude first is here x. I'm going to have to set this one up first, right? So the small is 4 in the baby, the small is 4 and the medium's x, so 4x. And then here on the teen, I have x and 5. Right? Square root. So x is the square root of 20. Okay, now that we know that's the square root of 20, we can use Pythagorean theorem to solve. So I have I'm trying to solve this width. I guess I can call it W. So I have the small triangle, 4 square root of 20 and W. So let's order these least to greatest. 4 square root of 20 and the W, the width of my shelf. That worked out nice. When I take the square root of 36, sorry, it fell off of my paper there for a second. Take the square root of 36, I get 6. So my answer is 6 inches. Okay. Now, 2 you did in class, or if you ran out of time, this one you have to do on your own. 3 you can skip. So we only have one more problem. Let's do question number 1, and we'll be done. Question number 1 says, in a right triangle, what is the relationship between the altitude and the hypotenuse? So if I have a right triangle, which we've been practicing drawing like this, if I have a right triangle, what's the relationship with the altitude? To the hypotenuse. So here's my hypotenuse. Between the altitude and the hypotenuse, triangle similarity, and the geometric mean. Wow, that's like a big question. That's why it's called the essential question. That's essentially what we talked about all day today. So kind of summarize the lesson today. We said the altitude creates 3 similar triangles. What's the relationship between the altitude, we call that x, and the 2 sides? So we wrote in our notes, the relationship is, we notice if we order the sides least to greatest, A and X on the baby, and X and B on the teen, we get this formula. So this is the relationship. The ratios are the same. And last but not least, my geometric mean is the special vocab word for x. X equals my altitude, which actually equals my geometric mean. That's what the geometric mean is. Great job, guys. Thanks for joining us.